Right, we should be going live. Hello. There we are. Hello. How has everybody's week been? How's life? How's the universe? How have you been? What's everybody been up to this week? Anything interesting? For me? No. What have I been doing? Building OSRTT units. Because they're flying off the shelves, which is great for me. Hello John, hello Ish, and hello Zig. How you doing, man? How's things, everybody? Hello. Hello. Yeah, how has everybody's week been? What was I gonna say? I've forgotten already. Hello Simon, how you doing, man? How's things? Yeah, I've been busy building lots of all tangled up. Lots of these bad boys. The OSRTT Pros. I actually slightly redesigned it because so this is I've showed this before, but this is one of the built boards. And the problem I have is that this tiny little chip here is the switch that can basically bypass any one of these 8 resistors. And the problem is that that chip is very, very difficult to hand solder. Well, hand solder, what I mean is not with soldering iron, but with hot air and solder paste. But it's causing me too many failures. I currently have 5 of these boards built, but that don't work, and that's kind of a problem because each one of these boards, like each one of those chips alone, is like £4.50, and the rest of the board is another easily 20 quid, if not more. So I want to make them all work, and so I've redesigned the PCB, and I've got some new ones on the way, so that I can use a different chip that I didn't know existed, but as far as I'm aware anyway, works in the same way. I can use the same code, it's just a slightly different layout, basically. It's a normal style of chip rather than the square with lots of pads basically underneath it. It's a normal sort of rectangular chip with legs out of the sides. So, yeah. Hopeful. Is it a new case design? No. It's the same case as I've had. It's just I'm building more units and redesigning the PCB slightly. Yeah. How has everybody's week been? What else have I been doing this week? Oh, I've been reviewing a monitor. You'll see it tomorrow. It's from AOC, and it is a 240Hz VA monitor, which sounds weird. It's actually not that bad, and more importantly, it's £190 for a 240Hz monitor. What? That's great. Like, it wasn't that long ago that we were praising the 24 GTU for being an excellent value at under £200 for a 144Hz monitor, so 240 is even better. One of my motherboards is maybe dead. Apart from that, life is okay. I realize I'm making too much chat. Oh, it's alright. I mean, there's normally more people here and chatting, so that normally balances out. Unfortunate about the motherboard is it what makes you think that it's dead? Like, not booting? Is it the CMOS battery, or is it the whole board is just gone? Because I have some who are like that. So who's the most obscure type customer who's bought an OSRTT? Well, it's hard to know because, not everybody leaves a company name. So there are plenty of, like, I've shipped them all around the world. I'm surprised by how much how many I've shipped to Asia as a region. I've shipped 2 or 3 to Indonesia. I've actually shipped 2 to China, which is, you know, like, it's perfectly fine. It's just, you know, we're used to everything being made in China, so me building something in the UK to send it to China, you know, is a funny dichotomy to me. Shipped 1 or 2 to Taiwan, 3 or 4 to South Korea, actually 3 or 4 to Japan, with one of them going to Sony's headquarters in Japan, and then another one going to Sony's headquarters in the USA, and another one going to a major film studio who wanted to use it for latency testing. So yeah. There's also the sort of bigger press people, CNN underscore, New York Times Wirecutter, Linus obviously is my poster child of use case, and plenty more. Power issue, not booting. When I press the power button, RGB lights briefly flicker on, then stop. Try new PSU, different CPU, different RAM. Fair. If you have a multimeter, I would check the CMOS battery, because I've had that fail a few times on older-ish boards, and that can cause them to brick themselves a bit. So yeah. Hello, John. Welcome us back, technically. Somewhat. How's yours been? We'll swap the battery just in case, thanks. No worries. I had a really weird one with an ITX board where they had basically a remote mount battery. It's still just a 2232 or 2230. Low coin cell battery, 22 CR2032. Yeah, 2232. Come on, brain. Anyway, it is a all they've done is they've just soldered tabs to the top and bottom, and then some wires off, and then, you know, whatever. So I had to solder the tabs to a new 2230 battery to then have the lead to plug it in, and then put some heat shrink back over it and shrunk it down. So yeah, bike has arrived. Hey, nice. Are you not falling off yet? How's the power treating you? Yeah. Well, the M207 is what I learned to ride on. Very good bike. I have the problem with my SV650S where it's not quite the standard SV650. It's got quite a lean over angle. Like, I need to be quite lean forward, and the problem with that is that it's not quite a superbike style where you're properly, like, you know, tucked in, you're using your legs and your abs, and you can basically just rest on the tank most of the time, and that's kind of how you ride it. With the SV650S, I'm canted over just enough that I can't just sort of basically sit upright and then counter steer properly. I need to, like, manually hold myself up the entire time, which doesn't really work very well, so I end up leaning on the bars, but then that's a problem for steering because I'm putting weight on the bars, which makes it harder to steer and counter steer. So at some point I would like to swap bikes. I don't know whether I really need a bike right now. I realistically, I originally bought my bike and started riding because I wanted a fast vehicle, and I couldn't afford a fast car, so I thought bike's the next best thing. It's a bit of a different experience as well, so, you know, I'll give that a go, and it's another skill to put under the belt. I had the time to do it, so why not? But these days I really don't ride it that much. And because I own the S4, it really is as fast as I need to go. That does just fine. So I I'm contemplating not having a bike for a bit. Um, but then I have a restricted license. I have it's called an A2 license in the UK, which means I can ride pretty much any bike that I like, as long as it has a throttle restrictor to 49 horsepower, which is fine. It's plenty, but the what you call it? Come on, brain. I'm now old enough and have ridden for long enough that I basically need to retake my test to get the full license. But I don't really have the time to do that, nor I definitely need some lessons again, and I'd ideally want to use an instructor bike like the Enema 207, because it's much easier to ride. So I'm not sure. I'll have to think about it. It's tricky. 5 times the power. Almost fell off an hour ago. Hit a bit of gravel on the road. Nice. Are you at least kind of nicely geared up? Programming done at the mate's house. New automation. It's easy to use and reconfigure. Nice. I was going 12 kilometers per hour, so I just slid on my right sole. Surprised that my old body reacted that well. Nice. Is it pleasant to ride a bike in the rain and cold? No, it's not. That's why I don't. And why I don't ride the bike that much, because it's Britain. It's either always rain and cold, or it's way too hot. Like, too hot in theory is great, but the protective gear that I have is basically for like 15-degree outside weather, but dry. But especially these days, it's either freezing and raining, or it's 35 degrees and I'm literally dying anyway. So there's not really a good temperature for that. I think if I was going to replace the bike with something, it would be an adventure style bike, because that I have a habit of buying vehicles that are sort of the best all-rounders that I can find. I feel like the S4 for me is the best all-rounder, because while I don't need to go off-road, the fact that it has all-wheel drive, the fact that it's an estate, it's a medium to large car, all this sort of stuff. So it really fits me as a great all-rounder, and I feel like an adventure bike would also be a good all-rounder as well. But yeah. Either way, it will cost me money to do anything with it, whether that's sell it, whether that's keep it, or buy a different bike. So has a full rack mount server to control everything, a bit more complicated than operating a blind or turning on a light. And on the solar power domain, another mate is building a new house and is installing a 13.5 kilowatt solar system, no battery as yet. Nice. I would definitely recommend batteries. It's the thing that makes solar useful to me. Like, sure, solar. Come on, focus. Why are you focusing in this corner again? While solar is obviously useful anyway, the ability to store that energy for when you actually want to use it is the thing that makes it inherently useful to me. Although I've definitely come to the realization that if I ever want to whole house solar, much bigger battery, like the 7 or so kilowatt hour battery that I have, is nowhere near enough, and I need a lot more panels. Which is another thing. I was thinking about installing PV inspired by Andy too. Nice. It's not that difficult if you're doing it idiot style off grid. If you're doing it on grid, pay an electrician. You're wearing proper bike trainers, so it was cool sliding, but it scared you. Nice. Battery was the one and only fault in your girlfriend's PC. That made me feel my degrees were within it or what. Not sure if I understand that, but oh come on, stop focusing up there. Thank you. I've got a handy electrician. I call him Dad. Nice. I don't have that luxury. Should really make friends with some tradies. Really should. Oh, did you see last week that Intel have stopped paying Linus for the Intel Extreme Tech Upgrade series that he does? I only actually watched the WAN show segment where they talked about it earlier today, but I did see the news, and it's quite funny that AMD is swooping in to both save the series and promote themselves, I suppose. I don't remember him mentioning why Intel decided to pull out, but kind of funny. Did they lose a sponsor? Is that noteworthy? Well, like in some cases, them losing a sponsor is noteworthy, like Anker and their Eufy cameras, which were repeatedly found to just be streaming all of the video like insecurely, like not encrypted, straight to their servers. And the hilarious thing with the Eufy cameras was that if you connected to Eufy's servers through a media player, you could access all of the cameras. So they Anchor have only, like, they were caught in like 2021 or something for that problem. They said, oh, that's a bug, we'll get it fixed. And then late, I think it was early this year actually, they actually admitted, or might have even been like a couple weeks ago, they actually admitted that, you know, nothing was encrypted. It was all, it is all, you know, terrible basically. And their deceit is the bigger problem. Anyway, when Linus heard about it, they said they're dropping Anchor as a sponsor because, you know, they can't be trusted. So in those sorts of scenarios, it is a big deal. And then in terms of the Extreme Tech upgrade at Intel, the surprising thing is that, you know, it was a series that did very well for both Intel and Linus. So, and the fact that it's Intel dropping them, and the fact that AMD is sweeping in to save the day, as it were, is the significance there, the funny thing. So Anchor should be only trusted for dumb cables. Yes. think the argument is best to not reward a company who's willing to, you know, sell you out in that way. In general. His air conditioner is 25 kilowatts, so not sure what size battery would be required, as well as how large it would be. In Australia, battery backup is expensive. My solar power battery cost 40k. Damn. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, being able to run a 25 kilowatt, air conditioner. It's normally a question of runtime, like how much power do you draw versus how much are you going to, like how long do you want it to run, like overnight, for example, or do you want it to be able to run for a full day, do you want it to run for 2 days, something like that. And obviously with a 25 kilowatt air conditioner, that is a considerable amount of power, and I don't think a feasible amount of power to home battery it, home battery backup it. And obviously with a 13.5 kilowatt solar array, you're obviously never going to power the whole thing anyway. But yeah, I would probably say that run the air conditioner on grid and run everything else off grid. Hello Chris, how you doing, man? How's things? Ba-ba-da. Ba. Half term, great. No kids to deal with at work. Nice. Oh yeah, it's half term, isn't it? That would explain why I saw so many kids posting more RTTs today. Makes sense. To be a kid again. 25 kilowatts. Yeah, it draws 25 kilowatts when in use. So assuming that it was running 24/7, you'd be drawing 25 kilowatt hours per hour. But the thing about air conditioners is that they are not exactly efficient. Like, they are efficient in terms of how much heat they're removing from your house, because they're basically the same as a heat pump, but in reverse. In fact, they are just a heat pump, but the purpose is to pump heat out instead of pump heat in. But basically, they can have pretty high efficiencies in terms of removing heat from the house, which is good. But especially for a whole house, especially for a larger house, 25 kilowatts isn't, like, it's definitely big, but an industrial AC unit isn't all that. Is much greater, as it were. So for a whole house, 25 kilowatts sounds about right, especially for Australia. Yes, Technology Connections has some very good videos about heat pumps, air conditioning, and the not difference between air conditioning and heat pumps. Basically, the only difference is you have a reversible expansion valve. So instead of effectively the condenser side being outside, and then the sort of internal heat exchanger being inside, and therefore capturing the heat in the room and then forcing it outside. You swap the expansion valves around so that the heat outside is compressed and then brought inside. But yeah. Hello, Yano the user. How you doing? How's things? Enjoying your robes? My retirement home, which I'm still building, has no mains power. The system cost 102,000 back in 2005. Replaced the batteries about 7 years ago. Need new ones in about 3 years. Interesting. Here, if you have existing connection to the network and install PV, you have to have a load sharing system to even with your own battery. So as in, if you have if you're on grid, as it were, and then you install solar, you have to have an on grid or a grid tie inverter, is what you're saying, or I suppose a Tesla Powerwall gateway type thing. Interesting. It's the Darbrook Quest 2 controller. Well, they're a pile of garbage when you finally get past the glue. Hurt to spend money with Meta replacing it. Yeah, I've got an index controller that's in pieces in a bag, just off camera left, and it is also very difficult to replace. I needed to replace the joystick because it was drifting, and I couldn't, basically, which is really annoying, but yeah. Yes, Andy, it was lost in translation there. No, it's alright, understood. But yeah, fair. I mean, I imagine if you went off grid, you'd be fine, but yeah. Who needs a heat pump or central heating when you have fireplaces? Ah, yes, 16th century England. My house actually has a grate outside it that I only recently found out was where the coal was delivered to heat your house. They would just come and dump a load of coal in this like trough outside the door, like lift up the grate, dump a load of coal in the trough, and then it would all spill into the two houses that are like right next to each other. Actually, my house is 17th century. I think my house is 18th century. Just. It was like... no, 19th. Yeah. I thought you had an old CRT over your left shoulder. That one? No. That's just a load of shit. No, that's actually a pretty old 4K monitor. 4K 60. It's an AOC U2879VF. Don't ask me how I remember that. Oh, the Fantex case. Ah, right. I see. Also, no, it's a Fantex Evolve X. Beautiful case. In white. Although I did actually write a video talking about CRTs today and filmed it. So yeah. Yes, sort of. Not really. My house was built... my new house is built in 1890, so not that new after all. Yeah, no. Yeah, I think ours was about the same. 1890, 1900, 1910, maybe. But, yeah. It's falling apart. It's subsiding. It's sinking on one side, and there's all the cracks in the ceiling from where it is falling apart. We'll go lithium this time. Quoted to charge. Change over to lithium with new charging system. Stuff is 60k and no rebit this time. Like when I installed it, got back 80% over 10 years. Interesting. So are those lead acid, like deep cycle lead acid batteries that you've been using then? Imagine monitor model numbers used a lot for passwords. that's actually probably not a bad idea. If you can remember a Philips monitor, that must be the most secure password ever. Don't worry, mine isn't falling apart. It's being torn apart. Nice. I've got CRT, 2 CRTs in my room now, one TV for SNES and one monitor for a Windows 98 PC. You're a weird guy, Chris. Nice. Yeah. Moving on to anything else? Writing a bit of code as always. I was looking into wind turbines. I'd quite like a vertical axis wind turbine. There's one on AliExpress that I kind of want to get, but I'm gonna buy an anemometer, a wind speed meter, and mount it outside and have it log wind speed where I'd want to mount it, and then I can judge if it's worth doing or not. Also, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to hook it up, because ideally I would just have it charge the same battery that I use for solar, but I'm also not sure, you know, how that would work, and if it would cause any issues with the solar setup or not. But I really don't want to, you know, add another battery, so I guess we'll see. I have a CRT in the loft, thinking it might come in one day. Nice. Might be a while yet though. Yeah, to I guess 1500 amps. 12 volt, 1500 amp times 12 batteries. That's what you mean. Nice, fair. Not bad. Exhaust sound, which is better, an Aventador SVJ or a Ferrari 812? Good question. I've only ever heard an Aventador, so it's hard for me to give a concise answer. Both are V12s, aren't they? Both are naturally aspirated, aren't they? So pretty similar. The 812 is front engine, so exhaust pipes longer. There's more room for resonators and mufflers. So possibly the Aventador. The Aventador is I generally see as a more showboaty car anyway, so probably that one. The Jensen Interceptor, lovely sound. Bit of is that British Leyland or is that not quite? I think the 812 has a little more on the low end sound, seems more fruity. Nice. Yeah, I think Lambo's V12s are always very high pitch, screamy. So depends on your preference. Triumph Stag is also nice. Actually, I may or may not have raced a Huracan and a Golf R on the motorway the other day. I cannot confirm or deny that I did, of course, but in this hypothetical scenario where I might have, obviously I didn't beat the Huracan, but I did beat the Golf R, and I'm quite happy about that. I think it was a Mark 8 Golf R, and yeah. The Lambo didn't drop me quite as fast as I thought it would, to be honest, so I'm happy about that. saw someone with a modded 2004 Peugeot 206 and just had to laugh at them while walking back from lunch. Nice, nice. Actually, on the car front, you know that I've repaired my my friend's black BMW 5 Series a fair bit, since he bought it. Well, a while ago I did a video titled "Should You Buy a Cat-in Car?" I'm gonna I'm gonna I'm doing an update. Cause like 2 years worth of wisdom, one says the answer is definitely no. And two, if you are going to be that stupid, we have some suggestions for some things you might want to try. Is the update titled "Don't Buy a Cat-in Car"? It probably should be, actually. What do you do for a living? This, weirdly. Well, not live streaming necessarily, but making tech videos and car videos, hence the car hoodie. And I also make this bad boy, which is the innards of an open source response time tool, which is this bad boy, which is currently wrapped up in its elastic. So yeah, those three things mostly. I also technically run a link sharing site. Doesn't really make as much money, but it's useful for me, and it means that I don't have to pay money to someone else to use a platform that I don't really want to use. So yeah, that. Where's I saw that comment doesn't appear to be in the chat. Did you delete it? But then if it's message retracted, it normally shows. I'm very confused. Can you say your message again, yet another user? It was about AI and the advancements and whatnot there. From what I actually read of it on screen, I think you were asking about, you know, AI advancements and what the deal is there. I think if you've seen Tom Scott's video from earlier this week, it's a fantastic video. If you haven't, definitely recommend checking it out. But the long and short of it is that there are a whole load of new AI tools for all manners of things, with arguably the most, not scary one necessarily, but the most potentially important one, perhaps, being ChatGPT, and I suppose now Bing Chat. And the point that Tom makes, you know, to woefully undersell the video, and again, definitely check out if you haven't watched it already, but basically the point he makes is that if you think about something like Napster back in the early 2000s, that was kind of the warning sign for the music industry, in the sense that you went from, you know, buying, you know, the CDs, buying the records, or listening to it on the radio, to freely downloading the music. Now, technically, the freely downloading the music was illegal. The artists, and honestly the record labels, who take the lion's share of the money anyway, they aren't making money from you, you know, illegally downloading that music from somewhere like Napster or LimeWire. But it was, when looking back, the writing on the wall for the music industry selling CDs, right? Selling the music as a physical thing, or even as a, you know, like iTunes and buying music. You don't do that now. You stream music on like a service like Spotify, which has completely changed how we listen to music, right? And so his point about AI is that if you look back on things, they kind of follow a curve of slow adoption, but it's a new technology that can basically ideally revolutionize how we do things. And that it's slow adoption at first because you get teething issues, there's few changes, and then as it starts to pick up steam, you then start to get more sort of warning signs that things are changing, and then it becomes mass adoption, and then once it gets to mass adoption and we've kind of really reached the pinnacle of that tech, the adoption starts to slow down because either everybody already has or uses it, or there's little innovation in the space anymore, and so no one really cares. And I think with, for example, smartphones, no one really cares about a new iPhone launch, right? Like, sure, there are people who will still go and buy one, but unlike the first couple generations or the major revisions, no one's queuing up at Apple stores for days to get the new one, right? And so that kind of goes to show how little people care relatively. With AI, his concern is that if we're sort of in the middle of that curve, then cool, we'll see some cool new stuff. We'll have some really useful tools for existing, creatives and developers and whatnot. But if we're at the bottom of the curve, which is realistically the scary part, we are going to see a complete change in how we live our lives in arguably the same sort of major change that we had with smartphones, where we went from being relatively disconnected to, some would argue, overly connected. So yeah. And I personally, I think that we are at the bottom of the curve, as much as I would hate to agree. That's the thing that scares me about AI is, I mean, obviously the argument of a singularity, of course, but the fact that it will almost certainly change how we live our lives is the scarier thing for me. Because I'm relatively comfortable in how we use technology. I'm very much at the forefront of technology, you might say. But that doesn't mean that the major impending change isn't going to be a shock to the system, let's say. On the video front, well, on the AI video, AI audio front, that's kind of terrifying because you can there are already services where you can upload voice samples and have it recreate your voice, someone else's voice, whoever you want's voice, as long as you have audio samples of them, literally perfectly, to the point where it will add ums and ahs, it'll add inflection, it'll add the character that you would put in your voice normally. And you couple that with a deep fake video where you take even a real video of someone and modify it to fit the words that you've used your AI voice generation to generate, and we now can't trust any video or audio, which, yeah. What areas of tech do you think need more innovation? Uh, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because the tech in and of itself is almost always constantly innovating anyway. Um, I mean, the obvious answer is what we'll be talking about in terms of AI. I think in terms of not only what the tech itself can do, but what we allow that tech to do, as in a sense. But yeah, I mean, obviously the smartphone market hasn't really changed in a while. Sure, there are folding phones, but until I can get a phone that can magically shrink instead of just fold itself over, I don't really care. Sorry, ambulance going by. I think automotive tech is in the process of a shake-up as well, which is quite interesting to see. With the mix of both electrifying cars and making them some form of self-driving. That's quite interesting because there are a lot of hurdles to that. The LG rollable phone seemed like a good way to make the phone bigger. I like the, who is it? There's a Chinese phone brand that has a like just sort of magically extending display phone. I think it was only a concept, but I do like the idea. But yeah. I like that there are now some cases other than RGB everywhere, like the fake wood fractal design North. I do too. I do as well. RGB is fine, but it definitely they definitely went overboard in its application. Let's say. Uh, ba, 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 ba. Driven a Cupra Leon recently. I was shocked how good it was. Better than I imagined. Um, yeah. Was it the front wheel drive or all wheel drive one? Oh no, they didn't do an all wheel drive one. Only front wheel drive. Yes. Nice. Friend has one actually. Really likes it. Uh, like Tron, the creator's bias was programmed into the system, creating the idea of perfection, but no way perfect. Yes, that's far too true. In fact, it's very difficult to create a system that is perfect from an imperfect one. But that's a bit difficult when we are arguably trying far too hard to do that. Will the shift be from us using tech to us living with it? I think it depends how you define living with it. I think we kind of already are, right? Like, well, I like to be very pedantic about things, so technically speaking, anything is technology that we've, like, humans have invented. But, yes, electronics. We do use our phones, but we also very much live with them. They are very much part of our daily routine, not even just for the doom scrolling, but for communication, for information, for news. Because before these, news was newspapers and your TV news programs, whatnot, and on the radio. Now, the majority of news is consumed digitally via social media, via Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, whatever, BBC News app. And so that we're kind of already in what I would say is a bit of a grey area. I think the argument I would say is that we might go from it living with it to us being beneath it, right? Like, we started with tech as just a tool that we have. We're kind of now at a point where it's very much ingrained in our lives, and without it, we are very much stuck. I think the trend towards things like home automation is another key point. Is, you know, if your power goes out, your internet goes out, how much of your house stops working? All of it. Like, sure, your door's still closed and your window's still closed, and you know, but your heating won't work. Your door might not lock because your smart locks run out of power. So yeah, bit of an interesting one. Cyborg, that too. I mean, that would be great for me because I'm very broken. And it'd be great if I wasn't. A bit philosophical this stream. I'm worried if the power cuts and my freezer defreezes. I mean, there's that too. That's one of the things that it clicked for me was in the UK because we live in a late stage capitalist hellscape. The main company that purchases gas in the UK to supply households, Centrica, in 2017 was allowed to sell off 3/4 of their gas reserves to pump up their stock price or their financials, and therefore stock price and whatnot. And so in the UK we had the threat of rolling blackouts, which would only be for a couple hours at a time at the lowest level, you know, a couple, like 1 or 2 days a week, whatever, for a couple hours. But the thing that I realized is with having even just a little amount of solar power, gas supply would still be maintained, but because the power would be out, you couldn't use your boiler. So if I basically wire in a plug instead of the circuit to the breaker, I can power the boiler, which draws about 100 watts when running from solar, and so I can still heat the house and keep the fridge running for a good couple hours while the power's out. And so I'm quite happy that is a possibility for sure. Redundancy needs to be implemented with smart anything like electric e-brake. Good idea, bad execution. Yes, I would definitely agree. It's difficult to implement redundancy in things like smart home automation. Like, obviously, you know, for things like smart blinds or whatever, there's still a manual pull cord you can pull to open it if the, you know, power's out, the motor's off, whatever. But for things like a smart lock, you can't just have 2 locks. You'd, you know, have to have the redundancy there would be having a battery backup to make sure that your like router and internet connection stays alive to be able to use it or whatever. Which is why I would only ever use local control stuff, which then I control. But yeah. So come on, brain. I had a thought. Yeah, it's weird to be in a position where we're really thinking about self-reliance now. Like, the whole point of industrialization and of mass manufacturing and of, you know, whatever, brain's gone blank again, that sort of thing, is that we no longer have to, as a society, require ourselves to be entirely self-reliant, self-sufficient. We can have services provided by other people at a, you know, national scale But here we are talking about having home battery backups and solar and, you know, wind power and gas supplies and, you know, ways to heat your house and redundancy for things, and it's a very different world than it used to be. Exoskeletons superpowering warehouse workers. Unclick was interesting until it goes nuts and bends you. Ideally, you would have hardware limits for that, but yes. Annie, sorry, I was trying to say earlier about tech becoming an entity rather than an item, although probably isn't correct and clear either. Got you. So yes, in that case, yes, I agree. It becoming more of a its own, not necessarily like sentient, doesn't have to be sentient for it to cause a problem. But if it is sentient, that is a problem. Is Nvidia 4050 better than a 3060? Well, I didn't think that there was a 4050, so no. Yeah, I don't think that there is a 4050. Is there a mobile 4050 maybe? I don't think so. Can anyone enlighten me? Am I missing a whole product line from Nvidia? I mean, whenever it's available, in theory it should be, yes. But in practice, as far as I'm aware, there isn't one, so yeah. Yeah, there is no 4050. No 4050 laptop? There's probably an AliExpress 4050. Sounds about right. Yeah. Well, yeah, in theory it should be better, but yeah, there isn't one as far as I'm aware. The 4050 is a rebranded GTX 4030. It'd be better if it was a GTX 1030. MSI GF66 12V060KH. Interesting. A cool one today. 39 is a high in Melbourne. That's cool. Oh god. Let's see. I can only see oh no, there's an American one. Oh no, that's the Titan. I'm very confused, which is why I'm searching it. Oh no, there is. This website uses the same WordPress theme as I do. It's listed as a 4050 6 gig. I am very confused. I mean, I was right that it is a laptop, but yeah. It's also listed as a GF63, not a GF66. Oh, there is a news story from WCCF Tech. Okay. Oh, there is Overclock UK. So there is. Holy shit, that's expensive. If you're buying it for that price, mate, don't. Oh. To my country, Cambodia. Got ya. So it's the GF63, is the new one. And there are 4050 laptops on pre-order. But yeah, that's so I as you can probably tell, never tested one, didn't know it existed. And I think it was only released a day ago. So but yes, like I said, in theory it should be. In practice, you'll have to wait to test, see reviews and test for them. And for the sort of pricing that I see listed here for the GF63, that sounds like an absolutely terrible value. So you might be better off with a 3060 laptop instead. But yeah, once the reviews are available, that'll be a good port of call for you. But yeah, I'm not sure, I'm afraid. As you can probably tell, I'm surprised to find they exist. Yeah. I think that will do us for today, though. If you want to, follow up on any other questions, as always, the Discord is linked in the description, and I'm sure Ish will probably post a link in the chat in a second. And yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. As always, these are every Thursday night at 8 PM UK time, so if you want to pop back next week, feel free. Stay safe, have a good week, and I'll catch you all tomorrow for a video, Monday for a video, and next week for a stream. Bye guys.